I never imagined I would talk about my HIV status to anyone. You see, when I was told I'm positive, just like anyone else, I wanted it to be a secret. I didn't want anyone to know about it other than my husband, who had already known. So I never imagined I would actually talk about it. But the things that happened after pushed me to go public. So when we were seated preparing to pray, he also woke up and found us seated. And then he was like, "So why are you people awake?" And we didn't respond because we knew he knows what we want to do. Then he said, "Just give me a minute, I'm coming back." So he went back to the room, came back with a basin, and he put it on his head, and then he started marching on the living room. And I was like, "Oh my goodness, this man has finally run mad." And then he told me, "Now look here, you see how I'm marching with this basin on my head? This is how I'll be marching with your coffin when you're dead." Like, I felt, if telling people my HIV status make them feel better, then let me tell them. So I will tell anyone who cared to listen my HIV status. I will even sit in a bus going home and I will tell the person next to me, "Do you know I'm HIV positive?" So my name is Evangelist Nancy Kolumani. By the grace of God, I'm a pastor. I'm an evangelist. I am married to one male husband, and a mother of 5. I'm also an HIV activist. I do mentorship programs for women, and what else? Oh God, I'm an author also. So I think that's it.
Mm-hmm. So in general, you're just a lot of things.
Yes.
Now you've mentioned that you're an HIV activist. Tell us about that.
Okay, I began HIV activism not so long ago, like I think 2 years now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, about 2 years now. And I chose to do it because I'm HIV positive myself, and I related my own experience to the experience of others who are also positive. And so I decided maybe I can be someone's voice. Yeah.
You see, this is one of the topics that a lot of people know about it. There's the talks are always in silent rooms. How did you now finally get the courage to come up and decide that this is the road that I want to take? I want to share my own experience and see if it can relate to anyone out there. So how did that just begin, and how was it for you coming out to people?
Okay, I never imagined I would talk about my HIV status to anyone. You see, when I was told I'm positive, just like anyone else, I wanted it to be a secret. I didn't want anyone to know about it other than my husband, who had already known. So I never imagined I would actually talk about it. But the things that happened after pushed me to go public. You see, when I tested positive, and at that time I was pregnant, and I was at the hospital with my daughter. Of course, she was the first one to know about it. And I remember the nurse who gave me the results was like, "If I were you, I wouldn't tell my husband now. I would wait until I've delivered. And then, when you're ready now, you tell your husband." But I was like, So I'll have to carry this bottle of medication at home and hide it for the rest of the months that I'm pregnant, for me to hide these things. It's not going to be possible. So I decided to tell my husband. Whatever decision he was going to make, I was ready. So I went back home and I told my husband, and we agreed that it was not going to go outside our walls, like our home. But something just happened to him. I think, I don't know. I don't know if it was to him or to me, because even before my HIV status, I think God was already telling me about it, but I I was taking it to be another kind of an illness, not HIV. Because I remember there's a time I had seen myself, but it was in a vision. I had seen myself standing beside some big table that was full of medication, and I was busy packing the medication in my bag. And I was wondering, why are there so many? Why am I packing a lot of drugs in my bag? But now when I woke up, I started praying and I was like, oh, I rebuke the spirit of TB. I cannot take TB medication. To me, it was TB. I knew TB was the longest kind of medication you can take. I never imagined there was something else. So me, I rebuked TB and I was like, I'm not going to take TB medication. 6 months is a long time for me. But again, I told myself, that's just a very weird something. Maybe it was because someone else, not me. So again, I had visions like I was seeing myself like there's one I had that I was seeing myself standing in Uhuru Park before it was Uhuru Park now, the Uhuru Park for long ago, where we used to go for crusades and stuff. So there's a time I also saw myself there standing, and I couldn't hear what I was telling my congregation, but the congregation was majorly for women, and the women were too many, and I was talking to them. I couldn't hear what I was telling them, and we were crying together. And then I would reach the ones I could and hug them, but I could not understand what I was telling them. And that was still another vision. And all these things were coming before my HIV status. So when my status now came and I told my husband, and he was like, we are not going to tell this to anyone. Though I really wanted to tell my dad about it. I don't know why I wanted to tell my dad, but I really wanted to tell my dad about it. But he refused, and I was okay with it because he was my husband at the end of the day. So he started acting up, like he would get drunk, and very drunk for that matter, until I don't know, he forgets himself or what. So he would come back home drunk and start insulting. Like he would shout from the gate, calling out watu wa ukimwi. And this was supposed to be a secret. So I don't want the neighbors to know my status. I don't want anyone else to know. And here he is shouting. And now everyone is out there waiting to see the mtu wa ukimwi. And he would shout, calling out, where watu wa ukimwi, mfungulie gate. And it was so bad. So within no time, of course, the neighbors started knowing. But now they thought maybe he was drunk and just talking his own things. But he would insult me over and over again until people started now doubting if it was really true or not. And because of the insults and stuff, I started losing weight. I started looking funny, and I was pregnant. I started looking like AIDS itself. So I didn't have to introduce myself as a person living with HIV at that time. You would just look at me and know that there's something wrong with this one, and it's obviously HIV. So after all that drama with my husband, now I mentioned I'm a pastor. I go to church, and rumors spread like fire. So I go to church, and I'm preaching to this congregation, and the way these people are looking at me, it's obvious they're not even in church. They're just judging. They're like, how did you even get the virus? What is wrong with this one? So there was stigma in church, stigma at home. But now the final thing that he did, before I went public, he came home drunk as usual. And like 2 weeks before that incident, there's a very crazy dream I had that I was in my church telling my congregation about my HIV status. And when I asked my bishop, then he told me, hey, Nancy, I think God wants you to go public. And I was like, what are you saying? That's a very wrong interpretation. Then he told me, no, if God wants you to go public, then he will tell you how. And I was like, God cannot be that wicked. I don't want anyone to know my status. God cannot be that wicked. In fact, I can't go public. Let him do what he will do, but I will not go public. And I remember he told me, and see, you remember Job? And I was like, yes. Not Job. You remember Jonah? And I was like, yes, I remember Jonah. you remember what happened to him when he refused to go where God asked him to? And I was like, I'm not Jonah, I'm Nancy. I mean, it's two different stories. So me, I'm not going. I'm not going public. Nobody will ever know my status. Even the neighbors, let them just know it's a rumor. Let them think my husband is just talking his own things. But now after this incident with my husband, uh, where he came home drunk that night, and we woke up with my daughter to pray at around 3. It was on a Saturday. So when we were seated preparing to pray, he also woke up and found us seated. And then he was like, so why are you people awake? And we didn't respond because we knew he knows what he wants to do. Then he said, just give me a minute, I'm coming back. So he went back to the room, came back with a basin, and he put it on his head, and then he started marching on the living room. And I was like, oh my goodness, this man has finally run mad. And then he told me, now look here, you see how I'm marching with this basin on my head? This is how I'll be marching with your coffin when you're dead. And I was like, what? And then he said, I will bury you right here. And you know me, I was already imagining everything. So when you pointed the floor, I was like, I saw a hole. Like I saw my grave. And I was like, what? So this guy has already buried me when I'm seated right here. So I was like, oh my God, no, this cannot be happening. Then he left and went back to the bedroom to sleep. And I was left there seated, staring. My daughter and I were staring at each other like, what just happened? So she went back in her room, and I was left seated there, now thinking, what was that? But immediately I thought to myself and said, what if I had a Facebook page and I called it Don't Bury Me Alive? It really relates. And then I said, I think I'm ready now to go public. Then I went back to the room and I told my husband, I'm going to address this nation for you so that you find something else to be insulting me about. This HIV thing is just way too much now. I'm going to find something else. I'm going to address the nation for you. Then he thought I was joking. So he went, picked my ARBs, threw them all over the floor. I was there looking at him and wondering what was wrong with him. So the next day was on a Sunday. I went to church, I ministered, and I came home at around 10. Then I took my phone, set it very well, and I did my very first video on how I found out I'm HIV positive. I sent it to a pastor friend of mine, and I told him, edit that thing for me. I gave him my YouTube passwords, and I told him, upload it and send me the links. And he did. And I shared it to everyone on my WhatsApp list, and that's how I went public.
That's such an interesting, in as much as it was somehow daunting on you, it's an interesting take through about how you knew about your status, your HIV status. And now I'm just imagining, and I hope it sits well with you if you can share with us now, when did you now realize you are now positive? Ama, how did you know this is where I got it from?
Okay, when I got tested, in fact, I wasn't going to get tested for HIV. I was going to start my antenatal clinics like any other pregnant woman. So when you're pregnant, it's just it's kind of mandatory. You have to go through the HIV screening. So I was tested for HIV, and when it turned positive, the first person that came in my mind was my husband. I was like, I've been with this man for 2 years now, and I've not been with any other person. So obviously, he's the one who's infected me. So I was 100% sure it was my husband until he got tested and he turned negative. Now that is when now my mind was like, what just happened? What is this? I mean, where did I get infected from? But now I sat down with myself and I came to figure out how I could have been infected. And I realized I could have been infected when I was in my previous marriage. Because when I walked out of my marriage, that was very abusive. Actually, I walked out because of infidelity. And I never thought of getting tested at that time. I don't know. I never thought of HIV, by the way. It never came in my mind. So I got, I, I feel I got infected in my previous marriage, and my husband was just lucky not to have gotten infected through that period. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so it was also at a point of ignorance, like
Mm-hmm.
you are not sure of
Mm-hmm.
where exactly you had gotten it from. Now
Mm-hmm.
you sent the video to your colleague to upload it, and then you shared it. I'm pretty sure your friends and families got to know that, oh, so Nancy is HIV positive. What was their reaction, and how did they come through for you? Did they support you, and how did that shape your journey?
Actually, you see, by the time I'm already going public, my family also knows, my parents know, my siblings know, and everyone joined forces to stigmatize me. So I felt I didn't have anything to lose at that time, and my going public didn't make anything better because they still stigmatized anyway. So I felt I was not doing it for me, not even for them. I was doing it for others. So of course, they did not like it. They felt I was shaming them or something. I don't know. They were not supportive at first. But right now, I'd say like 80% are in support of me. So, yeah, I'm good.
Mhm. That's very great to see it now that it built your confidence. So how was that transition like? Because you've mentioned that during that whole controversy with your husband, and now that's when you decided, oh, maybe I should go public so that I cast away that fear. What was your other biggest inspiration for you to now transition from keeping it within the confines of your home and just letting everyone out there know that I'm living with it and I'm just okay, and it's just a disease like any other that can be conquered if you cast out your fears?
Okay, when I went public, so many people started reaching out to me. So many women who were pregnant and were afraid of, giving birth because the baby will be infected or something. They started reaching out to me and I would advise them. And I felt, oh, so this is actually good because at least I'm encouraging someone, even with my own experience, with my children. At least they can see that I have children who are negative. At least I can tell them my husband is also negative. I feel this is great because I'm encouraging someone.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to go to the hospital that I started my treatment. And I remember there's a bench I liked sitting on so much when I went for my clinics, just at the corner. And seated there at the back, I was able to see everyone that was in front of me. And there was a day I was seated there and I was imagining, you are so many of us. And I was like, I was still pregnant and still learning. I didn't know much about HIV. I was still learning. So I looked at all these people and I was like, so you mean all of us are going to die? Like, all of us are going to die. We are so many women who are good as dead. I was like, what? And we are even pregnant. So what will happen to these babies that we are carrying? So I was asking myself a lot of questions because I was like, there's no way I can give birth to a child who is negative. Even if the doctor tells me that, oh, you see, it's possible, I was like, maybe they're just trying to console us and tell us everything is okay. But the fact is, you're going to have babies who are negative, who are positive. But now when I gave birth to my babies and they were negative, I was like, now I am going to encourage someone here who felt, who is thinking like I was thinking. And so I would go to the clinic and talk to the women there. In fact, I would just go seek permission from the management and then go talk to the women there, encourage them. And if there's anyone who had just turned positive that day, they would go home feeling better. If there's anyone who had lost hope that day, they'll go home feeling better. So I felt, so this thing is actually working. I started enjoying it. Like I felt, if telling people my HIV status make them feel better, then let me tell them. So I will tell anyone who cared to listen my HIV status. I would even sit in a bus going home and I would tell the person next to me, do you know I'm HIV positive? And they'll look at me like, what? What are you saying? And I was like, yes. I knew my sister when I was pregnant. You know, I would tell like anyone who cared to listen. So there's a day I was doing my usual thing in that hospital, and then that day women were so many, pregnant women were so many. And I was standing right before them and I was talking to them. And then some people came in and stood at the door. And I told them, excuse me, it's either you come in or you go out because I'm having a session with the women. And then you lock the door for me. So they chose to come and sit down. So they came and sat and I continued with my session as usual. So when I finished, and you know, doctors were passing and staring at me and I was like, what is going on? Why are these people looking at me like this? And they always see me doing this. Am I making a mistake or what? So after that, they called me and they told me, Nancy, I think you're hired. It was like, what are these people saying? And then I came to learn that they were the bosses of that hospital. And so that is where I got my job that I'm doing right now. Yeah, it's called Indap Hospital. It's a Dawn home. So my going public actually helped me because I always tell people, see, my HIV status gave me a job. Mm-hmm. So why would I be crying over it?
That's really amazing. And now, before we move into your advocacy journey, let's smoothly dive into your health and well-being. How do you manage to maintain your physical and mental health now that you're living with HIV and AIDS and you're just comfortable with it, which is really great?
Okay. For starters, I think I drain my energy from the Word of God because, you see, before I turned HIV positive, He said He had the best plans for me, and the plans were to prosper me, not to harm me. So after I turned HIV positive, I checked the same scripture. It says the same. So God does not change His words regardless of us. Even if we change, He still remains the same. So it's my hope and I believe that whatever plans He had for me, HIV did not come to change them. So it shouldn't make me sad. Yeah, he's like my creator. You see, if you have a car and it's faulty, you take it to the mechanic because you know he can fix it. But us, if we are faulty, where do we go to? To God, because He's our maker. So I really don't worry about HIV because I know the owner of me. Yeah, I know my owner. So if He owns me, He can wake up tomorrow and tell me, Nancy, you're healed. Stop taking those ARVs. Mm-hmm. But if He doesn't say that, it will not change the fact that He's still God. And I eat every day food, I drink every day. And so that's how I take my ARVs. It's like I look at them as though it's food. Like they don't bother me. They don't make me sad. I don't even think about it. Like I take them like it's normal. Like I would take water. So I'm not sad because of my HIV status. In fact, I don't even think about it until when it's time for me to take my medication. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because I drain my energy from God. I think I just drain my energy totally from God. That is where my strength comes from.
And motivation.
Yeah, and motivation.
Okay. Mm-hmm. How is it taking your medication? And how is it taking your medication? And also, is there a point in life where you felt like, I'm tired of taking this medicine? And how often is it required for you to take them?
I hate taking medications, by the way. I really hate medication, any kind of it. So whether it's sweet or bitter, I just don't like it. But see, now I have to take them every day because I don't have a choice. So every time, but I take them on my TikTok account, like when I'm taking them. And this is how I do my face and people think they are bitter. They are not even bitter. I don't know if they are bitter. Are they? Yeah, they are bitter, but you see the cover, it's not bitter. But that's just the thought of it that it's going through my throat. Oh, makes me shiver. I don't like it. So I just don't like medication. But I take them anyway. I take them every day at 8:30 in the morning. And I've never gotten to a point where I felt like I should stop taking my medication, because I was pregnant and I really wanted to protect my baby. And I got pregnant again. So I didn't have that break, like to think I should go for a holiday in terms of taking medication. And according to the things I read on the net and the things that my doctor told me, I didn't imagine me being sick. Like, they told me if I don't take my medication, I'll start falling sick. I fear pain. So I'm like, then I'm admitted in the hospital because of pain. Let me just take my drugs. So I've never gotten to that point of stopping my medication, though I get tired at times. I can wake up and feel like, what if I just skip today and take tomorrow? But then I remember my doctor's words. If you joke around with your medication, you'll be sick. Yeah, and you'll be admitted. I don't want to imagine myself in some hospital because of ARVs, which I can take. Yeah.
Mm. So are there things in terms of activities, food stuff, that you had to forgo for your medication to work, right? And also, what are some of the diseases? Because I've heard that when you have certain diseases, if you don't do certain things right, they only increase your chances of being in the hospital bed.
Okay.
So what are some of those things that, if at all they exist, that you had to forgo for your medication to work well for you?
Okay, for me, I'm still doing what I used to do, because I don't drink alcohol. Alcohol doesn't go down well with any kind of medication, not just ARVs. I also don't do drugs. Drugs don't also go well. And I'm not in multiple relationships. So those are the only things that can actually make the medication not to work on someone, or even mixing these herbs, these herbal things, or rather miti shamba. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are the things that can make the medication not work. But if you stick to what the doctor says, like you eat correctly, and by eating correctly doesn't mean you eat expensively. Yeah, you can eat anything cheaper but healthy. Like you can find good kienyeji huko sokoni. Yeah, you can find a fruit somewhere. You can drink some milk, and you'll still feel good. And if you don't have all that, you can still take your vegetables and ugali and be fine, just like you eat every other day, and you're okay. So long as you don't drink, you don't smoke, you don't do drugs, and you're not in multiple relationships, then you're safe.
Amazing. That's really amazing, now getting it from you to understand it. I'm also understanding it. So now let's switch gears to your advocacy or activism journey. What was your main aim while starting this? What goals did you want to achieve, or what impact did you want to create in the minds of people that you are reaching out to?
Okay, I wanted to first of all and try to end stigma, because I realized stigma is actually the biggest thing, the biggest problem we have, not even HIV itself. And it has killed a lot of people, because it is stigma that makes people not take their medication. It is stigma that makes people keep quiet and not talk about their HIV status. And you see, I interact with a lot of people who are positive, and most of them have not even told anyone in their families. And now these families that don't know that they have a HIV positive in their family are the same ones that stigmatize people living with HIV. Not knowing that what you're speaking is also affecting your brother who is seated next to you, or your sister who is seated next to you. So my aim was to end stigma, and also to end mother-to-child HIV infections. I was like, if we can actually end the infections from mother to child, then we will not have mothers giving birth to babies who are HIV positive. And in future, we will not have HIV cases again. So my aim was to end mother to child transmission, and also to end stigma.
You see, with the stigma, also comes misconceptions about it, because
Mhm.
I think it's the whole misconception part of it that fills the mind of people who probably stigmatize people. So what are some of the biggest misconceptions about HIV that you aim to break?
Okay, I've come to realize that most people think that if you're HIV positive, you can infect another person just by sleeping with them. Yeah, that's a very wrong misconception, because I'm HIV positive and my husband is not, and we have children. So does that mean what? So I'd like the society to understand that any person who is HIV positive cannot transmit the virus to another person. Nowadays, we have ARVs, and which, if someone adheres to them very well, they cannot transmit the virus to any other person. So I'd wish that the society would learn that. I feel if they started by also, they have to know that we just don't catch HIV through sex like they think. There are so many other ways of catching HIV. Yeah. Sex is just one of it. And it's unfortunately the biggest way of transmitting the virus. But still, we have people who are born with HIV. We have people who got it through accidents. Yeah. We have doctors who've been infected in the hospital just with a needle. So we don't just look at someone and judge them and think that because they're positive, they must have been jumpy, so they deserve it. I had someone comment on my video some time ago in TikTok that you rest in peace, you deserve it. And I was like, wow. Okay, I was not hurt, but I was like, what if someone else who is positive goes through that comment, and they've not healed? It's really going to break them, because they'll look at it as them, yeah. So if the society will just be educated on HIV and AIDS, I think stigma would end. They just don't know. Yeah. I feel they just don't know much about HIV, and they're still thinking the HIV we have today is still the kind of HIV we had back then when AIDS was there. You see, nowadays people don't die of AIDS. It's very rare. Anyone who dies of AIDS right now, by the way, if they survive that death, they need to be imprisoned for suicide. Because why should you die of AIDS now when we have medication, when we have people who have cancer struggling to live, and you have free medication and you're joking around with, hey, you have to be imprisoned, by the way, so that you just learn a lesson. Nowadays, people should not die of AIDS unless they really want to. Yeah.
Very interesting. So, what are some of the success stories from your advocacy that you feel very proud of?
Okay. First, I feel happy when someone calls me and tells me, hey, Nancy, I've delivered and we've gone for the PCR test and my baby is negative. That is beautiful. That makes me feel great. Yeah. And you also have people who are in discordant marriages. And after we talk and they call me and they tell me they're still in their marriage, it's also a breakthrough for me, because hey, who wants a marriage to break? Really, no one. So if they don't break because of HIV, again, to me, it's a success story. So, and also for my fans who keep on calling and telling me that they've walked this journey with me and they're feeling stronger, it makes me feel good. It really encourages me to keep doing what I'm doing.
Other than your social pages, how else do you engage with people? And are you aligned to specific individuals, like I'm only targeting mothers or parents, or you are just diverse in terms of the people that you engage with? Do you involve the youths? And other than now your social pages, where else do you get to interact with them?
Okay, I interact with everyone. Okay, I don't just specifically focus on women or the youth, but I thank God I fit everywhere. I thank God I can fit in the youth. I look like them. When I come to mothers, I can also fit. So I talk to everyone, especially at the hospital. That's where they come for support groups. I have several support groups where we meet with women, with men, and with the youth also, even with the teenagers. and we get to interact and talk and share the challenges we might be facing or anything just to make us feel better. You know, these support groups are good because you see, me as Nancy, you might think I'm okay, like I've overcome everything in my life because I won't tell you. But when you sit in a support group, someone else might talk about what they're experiencing, which I'm also experiencing and I haven't shared. And through her own experience or his own experience, I would feel like the problem is solved because I'm going to do what the person advised I should do. So I interact with everyone and I meet up with anyone who calls me to meet up. So I'm diverse.
Okay. What has been your most impactful campaign so far?
Wow. Ending mother to child transmission. Yeah, let me say that is my campaign right now. And I'm still like making steps on how I would ensure that happens. And I've started up with educating women who are positive, like the ones who have come out publicly, not publicly as such, but the ones who can talk to me about it and tell me they're pregnant and they don't know what to do. So I've started up with talking to them, encouraging them, of course, educating them on how they're supposed to be and live and stay, and also take care of their pregnancies and babies when they are born. So my biggest campaign right now is ending mother-to-child HIV transmission. Yeah.
What are the biggest policy gaps in HIV response that you feel like need urgent attention?
Like?
In terms of what the government is doing, health in the health sector, as a society, what are some of the policies that, if implemented, can bridge now that gap so that, you know, we decrease that ignorance about HIV?
I feel if only the government maybe could talk, rather educate some nurses, in some government hospitals on how to handle HIV positive, people living with HIV. I think it will be a milestone in something, because most of the people I talk to that have defaulted care have confirmed that they stopped it because of how they were treated at the hospital, how they were talked to by some nurse, like how they were addressed publicly when they didn't want anyone to know their status. And there's even one who said there's a particular tent in their hospital that when you go there, they just know you're positive because that is their clinic. Like that is where they go for their clinic. And I felt if only maybe the government could, I don't know, educate the nurses or something on how to handle people living with HIV, I think it would help, because we would not have people defaulting care. And if people default care, and that means if they go out and still have sex or sleep around, it means the infections are still rising. So it's like we are washing a child in clean water, cleaning them and then dressing them up to go and play in the mud again. Then they come back, we wash them again. It's like you're doing nothing. So if the government would help with that, I feel it could be nice. And also, these people living with HIV, people like me, if someone would insult you and you stand and tell them that you know you're right and you can sue them, and sue them indeed, I think people will be afraid of insulting people living with HIV. But most people don't know what to do when they're insulted online or by someone. They don't know that we have our own people who can defend us. So if people can also be educated on that, and maybe also the government can emphasize on not stigmatizing people, I feel it will be great. And then I don't know why we don't have any adverts on HIV, but we do have on TB, on malaria. Have you ever seen one?
Now that you mentioned it.
I have never opened my television to come across an advert telling me if you don't abstain from sex, or if you do this and this, you're going to be infected with HIV. I've never come across that kind of a thing. And I wish if we would have those kind of adverts on our television, then people would remember. People would know, yeah, there's still HIV. I need to take care of myself. But for as long as they are not seeing any reminder, people will just do whatever they want. Like there's a time there was a rise in TB, and they brought these advertisements on TB na tiba, and the cases reduced. Those adverts really play a bigger role. I don't know why we don't have any.
Mm-hmm. Okay, now let's now talk about your empowerment. Are you empowering others? What advice do you give to people who are newly diagnosed?
With HIV?
Yes.
Okay. HIV is not a death sentence, as you all say. And it's not something new. It doesn't change anyone's life. It doesn't change anyone's ambitions. See, the kind of a person you were yesterday before you knew the status, it's still the same person you are today. Nothing has changed. The fact that you have the virus has not changed anything from you. So life has to go on. You still have to keep fighting. You still have to be strong. There are other illnesses that are far much worse than HIV. Yeah, there are illnesses that people go through a lot of pain, but with HIV, you're not feeling any pain. You're still strong. You're just living with a virus that is so tiny that you can control with the ARVs. So if you just got infected and you're feeling maybe it's the end of life, let me tell you, it's just the beginning of a new chapter, and you choose how to write it yourself.